This 4-year-old beggar girl tells Millionaire, "My mom made me drink bleach." What he does after seeing her foam at the mouth will shock you. Comment what you think will happen. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. Your help is very important. The relentless Arizona sun beat down on Central Park in Phoenix that afternoon in December, creating uneven shadows amongst the mature oak trees. Richard Sterling adjusted the collar of his crisp white dress shirt, feeling sweat trickle down his neck as he strode purposefully towards a park bench. At 52, he had built an empire in the organic peanut butter business through unwavering discipline and relentless determination. Every decision in his life was calculated, every move considered 3 times before being executed. His Italian leather loafers echoed on the park's flagstone path when something made him stop short. A small child, no older than 6, was sitting at the base of the statue of the city's founder. Her brown hair was matted and stuck to her sweaty face, and her clothes, a faded pink t-shirt and torn blue skirt, looked like they hadn't been washed in days. Richard hesitated. In his years in business, he had learned to avoid unnecessary distractions. Homeless people were the responsibility of the government, not his. But something in the girl's eyes stopped him. It wasn't just sadness or hunger. It was a kind of despair that he recognized, even without being able to explain where from. The child rose unsteadily and approached him with uncertain movements. "Please, mister," her voice was a hoarse whisper. "I need help." "Where are your parents?" Richard asked, maintaining the safe distance he always kept with strangers. "My mom." The girl swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears. "She said I was dirty inside. She gave me water with cleaning stuff to purify me." The world seemed to spin around Richard. "What did you say?" Before the child could answer, she began to cough violently. A white foam erupted from her mouth, staining her pink t-shirt. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed to her knees on the hot park ground. Richard didn't think twice. He scooped the girl into his arms, feeling how light she was for her age, and ran towards his car. Phoenix General Hospital was only 10 blocks away, but every second felt like an eternity as she convulsed in his arms. "What's your name?" he asked as he drove, trying to keep her conscious. "Joyce," she mumbled between spasms. "Joyce Smith." At the hospital, the activity was immediate. Nurses rushed over with a gurney. Doctors shouted technical orders that Richard didn't understand, and he found himself alone in the waiting room, his clothes stained with foam and sweat, wondering what the hell he was doing there. Dr. Reynolds, a middle-aged man with deep circles under his eyes, emerged from the emergency room 3 hours later. "Mr. Sterling, the girl is stable, but we need to talk." They sat down in uncomfortable plastic chairs. "What she ingested wasn't ordinary cleaning fluid," the doctor explained. "It was a mixture of various chemicals, but the most concerning thing is that she has signs of chronic allergic reactions to several chemicals. It's a rare but serious condition. Is she going to be okay?" "For now, yes, but Mr. Sterling, I have to ask, what is your relationship to the child?" Richard looked through the dirty hospital window, watching the city lights begin to flicker on. I found her in the park. She asked for help and then she passed out." "Where are her guardians?" "I don't know. She said something about her mother, but—" Richard stopped, realizing he knew absolutely nothing about the child except her name. Dr. Reynolds sighed. "I'll have to call Child Protective Services. A child in this condition, without responsible adults present." "Can I see her?" The doctor hesitated. "Just for a few minutes." Joyce was lying in a hospital bed that seemed to swallow her whole. An IV was in her arm, and electrodes were taped to her chest. When she saw Richard, her eyes lit up with a gratitude that hit him like a punch to the stomach. "You didn't leave," she whispered. No, Richard replied, surprised by his own response. I didn't. My mom always leaves when I get sick. She says, it's because I attract bad things. Richard sat down in the chair beside the bed, his hands trembling slightly. What kind of things does your mom make you drink? Different things. Bleach, detergent, sometimes medicine mixed with other stuff. She says she needs to clean my dirty blood. Anger surged in Richard's chest like a tidal wave. In 52 years of life, he had faced unfair competitors, dishonest suppliers, and difficult clients. But he had never felt such pure rage as he felt at that moment. Where is she now? I don't know. She left me in the park this morning and said she was going to get new medicine. That was a long time ago. A nurse came into the room. Sir, you need to leave. The girl needs to rest. Outside, Richard called his sister Susan. I need you to come to Phoenix General Hospital right now. What happened? Are you okay? I'm fine, but I need your help with a legal matter. Richard, it's 8 o'clock at night. I'm at home with the kids. Susan. His voice carried an authority she knew well. It's urgent. While he waited for his sister to arrive, Richard walked through the hospital corridors. The smell of disinfectant and the beeping of medical equipment created a suffocating atmosphere. He stopped in front of a window and looked at his reflection in the glass. A middle-aged man, neatly cut graying hair, expensive clothes, perpetually controlled expression. But at that moment, he didn't recognize the man staring back at him. His entire life had been built on control and predictability. He woke up at 5 in the morning, checked emails over coffee, spent the day at the factory supervising every detail of production, returned home at 8 in the evening, ate dinner watching the news, and slept at 10. Weekends were dedicated to reviewing reports and planning the following week. There was no room for children in his routine. There was no room for emotional complications, and there was definitely no room to get involved in the problems of a dysfunctional family he didn't even know. But when he thought of Joyce alone in that hospital room, when he remembered the relief in her eyes, when she saw him still there, something inside him stirred in a way he couldn't control. Susan arrived 40 minutes later, wearing a dark blazer over her casual clothes. At 48, she had been a lawyer for more than 20 years, specializing in corporate law. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her expression clearly showed that she wasn't happy about being dragged out of the house. Explain what's going on, she said, without preamble. Richard told her the whole story. As he spoke, he saw his sister's expression change from irritation to concern, and then to something that looked like alarm. Richard, do you realize what you're getting into? A child was dying in front of me. What was I supposed to do? Help, of course, but that doesn't mean you need to get involved beyond that. Child Protective Services will take care of her. What if they don't? What if she goes back to this mother who's trying to poison her? Susan studied him for a few moments. What exactly do you want to do? Richard looked toward the room where Joyce was sleeping. I want to make sure she's safe. Richard, Susan lowered her voice. You're talking about temporary custody? Adoption? Do you realize this could take years? That it will mess with your whole life? I know. You're 52 years old. You've never been married. You've never shown any interest in having children. Why now? Why this child? It was the question Richard didn't know how to answer. Why had Joyce affected him in a way that nothing else in his life had managed to do? Why, for the first time in decades, was he considering making a decision based on emotion instead of logic? I don't know, he admitted. I just know I can't simply walk away and pretend none of this happened. Susan sighed deeply. All right, I'll talk to Child Protective Services first thing in the morning. But Richard, you need to be prepared for what's coming. This kind of situation, it's complicated. There are a lot of things that can go wrong. That night, Richard stayed at the hospital until late, checking on Joyce every hour. She slept restlessly, whispering incomprehensible words and waking up startled at every noise. Each time this happened, she looked around for him, and only calmed down when she saw him there. At 2 in the morning, a nurse suggested he go home and rest. "She'll be fine. We have her monitored." But when Richard got up to leave, Joyce woke up. "Are you leaving?" Her voice was filled with panic. "I'm going home, but I'll be back early in the morning." "Promise." Richard looked into the child's eyes and saw a fear that went far beyond the current situation. It was the fear of someone who had been abandoned so many times that she could no longer believe in the promises of adults. "I promise," he said, and for the first time in years, he made a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. Richard arrived at the hospital at 6 in the morning, carrying a paper bag with bagels and cream cheese that he had bought at the corner bakery. He didn't know if Joyce liked those foods, but they were the only ones he could find open so early. During the sleepless night, he had found himself planning a child's breakfast as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The room was silent when he entered. Joyce was sleeping curled up like a wounded animal, her hair spread on the white pillow. Dr. Reynolds was beside the bed checking the monitors. "How was her night?" Richard asked in a low voice. "She had some nightmares, but her vital signs are stable. The allergic reaction is under control." The doctor studied him with curiosity. "Mr. Sterling, can I ask a personal question?" Richard nodded. "Why are you doing this? Don't get me wrong, it's admirable, but it's very rare to see someone get so involved with a child they don't know." It was the second time in 12 hours that someone had asked that question. Richard looked at Joyce, sleeping, and tried to organize his thoughts. "Doctor, do you have children?" "2, an 8-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl." "And if it was your daughter in that bed, if she had been poisoned by her own mother and had no one in the world to protect her?" Dr. Reynolds didn't answer, but his gaze softened. Joyce woke up a few minutes later, and her eyes immediately searched for Richard. When she found him, a shy smile appeared on her face. "You really came back." "I said I would." Richard showed her the paper bag. "I brought breakfast. I didn't know what you like." Joyce's eyes widened. "You brought food for me?" The question hit him like a slap. When was the last time someone had bothered to feed this child? "Of course. You must be hungry." As Joyce ate slowly, chewing each piece as if it were precious, Richard watched her every move. Her hands were too small, her fingers stained with dirt that wouldn't come off even after being washed. There were small scars on her arms, some recent, others older. "Joyce," he said carefully, "can you tell me a little about your mother?" The girl stopped eating and looked at her hands. She's not bad. She just gets different sometimes." "How do you mean different?" "Her eyes get weird, and she says she needs to clean me. She says I have bad things inside me that make her sick." Richard felt the anger rising again, but he forced his voice to remain calm. "And how long have you two been living together?" "I don't really remember. I think 2 years. She found me in downtown when I was alone." "Alone how?" Joyce shrugged. "I've always been alone. Before Denise, I slept under a bridge. She said she was going to take care of me." At that moment, Susan entered the room, accompanied by a middle-aged woman wearing a grey suit. Their serious faces indicated that they didn't bring good news. "Richard, this is Michelle Miller, a social worker responsible for the case." Michelle greeted Richard with a firm handshake. "Mr. Sterling, I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with the minor." They went out into the hallway, leaving Joyce finishing her breakfast. Michelle opened a file and began to question Richard in detail. His profession, marital status, experience with children, motivations for getting involved in the case. "Mr. Sterling," she said finally, "I appreciate your concern for the child. But I must inform you that there are protocols to be followed. Joyce will be transferred to a temporary shelter while we investigate the family situation." "A shelter?" Richard felt something tighten in his chest. "She's just been poisoned. She needs special medical care. The shelter is equipped for that." "What kind of equipment? How many children are there? What is the caregiver-to-child ratio?" Michelle seemed surprised by the detailed questions. "Mr. Sterling, I understand your concern, but I would like to request temporary custody." The silence that followed was heavy. Susan closed her eyes and shook her head slightly. Michelle studied Richard for a long time. "Mr. Sterling, this is a complex process. There are background checks, psychological evaluations, home visits. It could take months." "How long would she have to stay in the shelter?" "It depends. If we find the mother, if she is considered fit, and if she isn't found, and if she is considered unfit, then Joyce would enter the adoption system." Richard looked through the hospital window at the city he had known since childhood. Phoenix wasn't a big city. Everyone knew everyone. If he formally requested custody of Joyce, it would be news in a matter of hours. "What are the first steps?" he asked. For the next 2 hours, Michelle explained the bureaucratic labyrinth that Richard would have to navigate. Forms, interviews, financial checks, home evaluations, psychological reports. Each step seemed designed to discourage people like him. "There's one more thing," Michelle added. "We need to find the child's mother, Denise Smith, until she is officially considered unfit or relinquishes custody. Any adoption process will be impossible." When they returned to the room, they found Joyce talking softly to a nurse. She was drawing on a piece of paper, simple figures of people holding hands. "It's my new family," she explained to Richard, showing him the drawing. "You, me, and the lady," pointing to the nurse. Richard's heart ached. How could he explain to a 6-year-old that things weren't that simple? Dr. Reynolds approached. "Mr. Sterling, Joyce can be discharged tomorrow, but she will need regular medical follow-up. Her allergic condition requires specific care." "What kind of care?" "Daily medication, a restricted diet, a controlled environment, and if she has new exposure to chemicals, it could be fatal." Richard absorbed this information. Joyce wasn't just an abandoned child. She was a child with complex medical needs that would require constant attention. "Mr. Sterling," Joyce called him, "can I go to your house when I leave here?" The silence in the room was deafening. Michelle looked at Richard expectantly. Susan shook her head almost imperceptibly. Dr. Reynolds awaited an answer. "Joyce." Richard knelt beside the bed. "It's a little more complicated than that. There are some things we need to figure out first. But you're going to take care of me, right? You're not going to give me medicine that hurts me?" "Never," Richard replied without hesitation. "I'll never give you anything that hurts you." Later, when Joyce was sleeping again, Susan pulled Richard aside. "Are you sure about what you're doing? This is going to completely change your life. Do you understand that?" "I understand. Richard, you have a company to run, employees who depend on you, huge financial responsibilities. How are you going to balance all that with taking care of a sick child?" It was a valid question. Richard had built his empire through total dedication to work. 12, 14 hours a day at the factory. Constant trips to clients and suppliers. His life was spreadsheets, contracts, and meetings. "I'll figure it out." "What if the mother shows up? What if she wants Joyce back? Then we'll have to deal with it when it happens." Susan sighed. "There's one more thing you need to know. I made some calls this morning. Denise Smith isn't just a neglectful mother. She has a history of drug problems, debts with dangerous people, and there are rumors that she uses children to get money from compassionate people." Richard felt his blood run cold. "What do you mean?" "That maybe Joyce isn't the first child she found, and that her appearance in Joyce's life may not have been as casual as it seems. Outside the hospital, the sun was setting over the desert horizon. Richard looked out the window and saw the city lights blinking on, reflecting off the distant mountains. His whole life, he had swum against the tide too, building a company from scratch, overcoming bigger competitors, conquering difficult markets. But this was different. This wasn't about profit or business strategy. It was about a 6-year-old child who had been poisoned by the person who was supposed to protect her, and who now looked at him as if he were her only hope in the world. When he returned to the room, Joyce was awake, looking out the window. "Mr. Sterling," she said without looking at him, "if my mom, Denise, comes back, are you going to give me back to her?" The question caught him off guard. "Why do you ask?" "That. Because everyone always gives me back to her, even when I tell them what she does to me." Richard sat down in the chair beside the bed. "Joyce, look at me." She turned, her eyes big and scared. "I promise I'll never let anyone hurt you." "Never?" "Even if she comes with the police, even if she says I'm her daughter." Richard looked into the child's eyes and saw a cruel wisdom that no 6-year-old should have. Joyce had already learned that adults lie, that promises are broken, that there is no safe place in the world. "Even then," he said, and at that moment, he knew he had just promised something that could destroy his life. From the hallway came loud voices. Michelle was arguing with someone. Richard got up to see what was happening and found a thin woman, with bleached blonde hair and bloodshot eyes, gesturing animatedly. It was Denise Smith, and she was demanding to see her daughter. Denise Smith looked even more ravaged in person than Richard had imagined. Her bleached blonde hair was plastered to her sweaty forehead, and her clothes, a stained floral blouse and torn jeans, reeked of cigarette smoke and something else he couldn't identify. Her darting eyes moved constantly, as if she were looking for an escape. "Where's my Joyce?" she shouted at Michelle. "You can't stop me from seeing my own daughter." Richard approached slowly. Denise noticed him, and her eyes narrowed. "Who are you? What have you done with my girl?" "Mr. Sterling brought Joyce to the hospital when she was feeling unwell," Michelle explained diplomatically. "Feeling unwell?" Denise laughed in a way that made the hairs on the back of Richard's neck stand up. "She always gets dramatic when she doesn't take her medicine right. She's a difficult child, you know how it is." "Medicine?" Richard couldn't contain himself. "You gave her cleaning products." Denise studied him from head to toe, noting his expensive clothes and gold watch. A calculating expression crossed her face. "Oh, I see. Another rich guy wanting to play hero." She approached him, lowering her voice. "Look, I know how it is. Lonely man, with money, wanting to do charity, but Joyce is my responsibility." "Your responsibility?" Richard's voice came out louder than he intended. "You almost killed her?" Hey, calm down." Denise raised her hands. "No need to get excited. I can see you've gotten attached to the girl. It happens. But listen, maybe we can come to an agreement." From the room behind them came a scream of terror. Joyce had heard Denise's voice. "No, I don't want to see her! Mr. Sterling, don't let her get near me!" The child's reaction was visceral. Through the half-open door, Richard could see her huddled in the corner of the bed, trembling violently. The monitors started beeping as her heart rate soared. Dr. Reynolds appeared running. "What's happening?" She was stable. "The mother arrived," Michelle explained. The doctor looked at Denise, and then at Joyce, who continued to scream. "I need to ask everyone to leave. The child is in a state of extreme panic." "But she's my daughter," Denise protested, "and I'm the doctor responsible for her. Right now, my priority is the patient's well-being." Denise was forced to back down, but not before whispering to Richard, "This isn't over, rich guy. Joyce is mine." After she left, it took 2 hours to calm Joyce down. Richard stayed by the bed, holding her small hand as she trembled. Every time she heard footsteps in the hallway, she cowered even more. "She's going to take me away," Joyce whispered repeatedly. "She always manages to take me away." "Not this time," Richard promised, but the words sounded hollow even to him. Susan arrived at the hospital 2 hours later, carrying a folder full of documents. Her face was tense. "We need to talk," she said, pulling Richard into an empty room. "I found out more things about Denise Smith. It's not good news." She opened the folder, revealing printouts of internet pages and copies of documents. Denise has no known fixed income, but in recent weeks she has been seen with significant amounts of money, always soon after appearing with Joyce in different cities. Richard studied the papers. There were blurry photos taken from social media showing Denise with older, well-dressed men in different locations. In all of them, Joyce appeared in the background, always looking sick or scared. "The pattern is always the same," Susan continued. "She arrives in a city. Joyce gets sick or gets hurt. Some man with resources appears to help, and after a few weeks, they disappear." "How many?" "Men. At least 6 in the last 2 years. All successful businessmen, all single or divorced." Richard felt nauseous. "And the men? What happened to them?" 2 moved out of state after Denise left. 1 closed his business. Another didn't return my calls. The implication was clear. Denise wasn't just a neglectful mother. She was a skilled manipulator who used Joyce's suffering to exploit the compassion of vulnerable men. "There's more," Susan said. "Denise has debts with collection agencies in 3 states, people who aren't known for their patience." "Are you saying Joyce is being used to pay off debts?" "I'm saying Denise may be much more dangerous than she appears." That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He stayed in the chair beside Joyce's bed, watching her have nightmares. With each sudden movement, she murmured, "I don't want to take medicine," or "I won't be a bad girl." Around 3 in the morning, she woke up startled. "Mr. Sterling, are you still here?" "I'm here. Can I tell you a secret?" Richard nodded. "Denise isn't my real mom." Richard's heart raced, but he kept his voice calm. "What do you mean, Joyce?" "I remember my real mom. She had black hair and smelled like flowers. She sang to me to go to sleep." Joyce looked at the ceiling. "One day she got very sad and people in white coats took her away. I was left alone. And Denise, she found me under the bridge in downtown. She said she was going to take care of me. At first she was nice. She gave me food, let me watch TV." Joyce paused, but then she started to get strange. "How strange?" "She said I had to get sick to get money, that rich men like to help sick children. And if I didn't get sick, she gave me medicine that made me get sick." The anger Richard felt was so intense that he had to get up and walk to the window to control himself. "Mr. Sterling," Joyce's voice was small, "are you going to give me back to her because I told you this?" Richard turned around. "Joyce, look at me. You'll never have to pretend to be sick again. You'll never have to take medicine that hurts you. Again. I promise. But Denise said that no one will want a girl like me, that I have a problem in my blood, and that's why I need the medicine." "What kind of problem?" "She says that's why I get red and swollen when I take the medicine, that my body is rejecting the purification." Richard understood with horror. Joyce's allergic reactions weren't a rare medical condition. They were the result of years of systematic poisoning. Denise had created the very condition she later used to manipulate the compassion of others. The next morning, Dr. Reynolds confirmed Richard's suspicions. Her allergic reactions are consistent with prolonged exposure to multiple toxic substances. If she hadn't been exposed to these products since she was little, she probably wouldn't have developed these sensitivities. Can she recover? With time and proper care, yes, but it will be a long process, and she can never be exposed to those products again. Michelle arrived at the hospital with troubling news. Denise has filed an emergency petition to regain custody of Joyce. She claims that you kidnapped her and are trying to buy the child. That's ridiculous. It may be, but the judge will hear the case tomorrow. And Denise has documents showing that she has been Joyce's legal guardian for 2 years. Documents that could be forged. Maybe, but until we prove that, she has legal rights. Richard looked at Joyce, who was playing with a teddy bear that a nurse had given her. For the first time in days, she seemed relaxed. What can I do? Hire the best family lawyer you can find, and hope that the judge sees through Denise's lies. That afternoon, while Susan made frantic calls looking for lawyers, Richard sat with Joyce. Joyce, tomorrow there may be a meeting where a judge will decide where you're going to live. Her eyes filled with tears. Is he going to give me to Denise? I don't know, but I want you to know that I'm going to fight for you. I'm not going to give up. And if I tell the judge about the medicine, about how Denise made me pretend to be sick, he might ask about that. I'm going to tell him everything, Joyce said with a surprising determination for a 6-year-old. I don't want her to do this to other children. That night, Richard was checking emails at the hospital when his phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? Mr. Sterling? The voice was male, nervous. My name is Robert Davis. I heard you're having problems with a woman named Denise Smith. Richard tensed. Who are you? I used to own a hardware store in Flagstaff, until Denise appeared in my life with a sick girl. I lost everything, Mr. Sterling. My store, my house, my reputation. What happened? She convinced me to invest in a treatment clinic for children with health problems. She said she had medical connections, that we could help many children like Joyce. I took all my money out of the bank, sold everything I had. Robert paused, his breathing heavy. On the phone. The clinic never existed, Mr. Sterling, and when I went looking for her, she had disappeared. But before she left, she spread rumors around town that I had tried, that I had inappropriate intentions with the girl. Richard's stomach sank. And now? Now I live in a cheap boarding house in Tucson and work as a night watchman. My family doesn't talk to me anymore. But Mr. Sterling, I have proof. Recordings, documents, photos. Everything that shows how Denise operates. Would you be willing to testify against her? Not just me. I've managed to contact other men she's hurt. We're all willing to help. For the first time in days, Richard felt a spark of hope. But that hope was quickly replaced by a terrible realization. If Denise had destroyed so many lives, what would she do to him if she didn't get what she wanted? And more importantly, what would she do to Joyce? The court hearing was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon, but Richard arrived at the Phoenix courthouse an hour early. Robert Davis had emailed dozens of documents proving Denise's pattern of behavior overnight. Recorded conversations, forged contracts, photos of Joyce visibly ill in different cities. Denise arrived 10 minutes before the hearing, accompanied by a young lawyer who looked nervous. She had dressed up, hair combed, subtle makeup, a conservative blue dress. She looked like a concerned mother, not a dangerous manipulator. Judge Thompson reviewed the preliminary documents as everyone settled in. We have a child hospitalized after ingesting toxic substances, a mother who claims to have been prevented from seeing her daughter, and a third party requesting temporary custody without any family relationship. Dr. Evans meticulously presented the collected evidence, the recording showing Denise admitting she gave special medicine to Joyce to make her sick. The medical records from multiple cities showing a pattern of poisoning. The testimonies from other men who had been deceived. As the evidence piled up, Denise became visibly more nervous. Your Honor, Dr. Evans concluded, we request that Joyce Smith be heard in private chambers. Joyce was brought in a wheelchair, still connected to a portable monitor. When she saw Denise in the room, she began to tremble violently. She was in the judge's chambers for 45 minutes. When the judge returned, his expression was grim. "I have heard very disturbing reports. The minor described how she was forced to ingest toxic substances, how she was trained to look sicker, and how she was used to manipulate adults." "She's lying," Denise exploded. "The minor also said that she remembers her biological mother and that you are not that person." "I took care of her for 2 years. Doesn't that count for anything?" "Miss Smith, is Joyce your biological daughter?" "No," she whispered finally, "but I saved her. She was abandoned." "Saved her only to then systematically torture her," Dr. Evans commented. "Shut your mouth!" Denise exploded. "You don't understand. I needed the money. I have debts. People are threatening me." "Are you confessing that you used the minor to obtain money through fraudulent methods?" Denise realized her mistake. "Listen here, Judge. This rich guy isn't a saint. 50-year-old man wanting to adopt a little girl. Everyone knows why rich men do that." The accusation made Richard recoil as if he had been slapped. "Your Honor, I would like to respond to those accusations. I never married because I never found someone who wanted to share their life with an obsessive workaholic. I never had children because I thought I would be a terrible father. And I got involved with Joyce because she was dying in front of me." The judge considered for long moments. "Mrs. Smith, you used the minor for fraudulent activities and subjected her to systematic abuse. You are prohibited from having any contact with the child." Denise screamed with rage, but she was escorted out. "Mr. Sterling, I will grant emergency temporary custody for 30 days, with complete psychological evaluation, weekly home visits, and continuous medical monitoring." Outside the courthouse, Denise appeared on the corner without the lawyer, hair disheveled, dress stained with tears. "This isn't over, Richard," she shouted. "Joyce is mine. I'll get her back." 3 days later, Richard was transforming the guest room into a nursery when Dr. Reynolds called, asking to talk urgently at the hospital. "Mr. Sterling, I did some additional tests on Joyce. I discovered something unexpected." Dr. Reynolds opened a folder. "I did a DNA test. Joyce Smith's name isn't Joyce Smith. Her real name is Valerie Christine Davis, and she's not 6 years old. She's 5. "What do you mean?" "The DNA matched a sample in the missing persons database." He turned the computer screen around. "Christine Davis, 31 years old, reported missing after having a severe postpartum episode, was admitted to a psychiatric clinic in Tucson, but escaped taking her baby daughter." "And the real mother?" "Still admitted to Desert Willow Psychiatric Hospital, but she has been officially cured for 6 months. She's asking to be discharged and looking for her daughter." Richard drove home in a state of shock. How could he explain to Joyce that everything was about to change again? When he arrived, he found her playing in the backyard. "Joyce, Val, I need to tell you something important." He explained about the discovery of her true identity, about her cured mother who was looking for her. Joyce listened in silence. "Is she going to take me away from here?" "I don't know yet, but she's your real mother. I don't want to leave. This is my home. You're my family. I don't want you to leave either, but we have to do what's right. What if she doesn't want to take care of me anymore? What if she remembers that I was a bad girl?" "You were never bad, Val, and I'm sure your mother loves you very much." That night, Susan explained his limited legal options. "If Christine Davis is declared competent and wants her daughter back, there's nothing we can do. And if she doesn't want her, then Joyce would enter the official adoption system. You could apply, but it would take years." Dr. Evans called with bad news. "Denise is spreading rumors around town about you and Joyce. Nasty rumors that could destroy your reputation." A phone from Tucson rang. "Mr. Sterling, this is Dr. Garcia from Desert Willow Psychiatric Hospital. Christine Davis found out about..." Her daughter through the newspapers. She's very agitated and demanding to come to Phoenix immediately. When? Tomorrow. It would be best if the meeting was in a controlled environment at the hospital with psychologists present. That night, Richard checked on Joyce sleeping. She murmured, "Thank you, Daddy," in her sleep. And the word hit him like a lightning bolt. In 1 week he had become a father, and tomorrow he would have to hand the child over to a stranger. Across town, Denise was making a call to Tucson. "The situation has changed. The rich guy got custody, but now the real mother has appeared. I'm not giving up. I've invested too much time. We'll have to speed up the plan. Tomorrow, then, the real mother is coming. It will be enough confusion to cover what we need to do." She looked at Richard's illuminated house. "Enjoy your last night, rich guy. Tomorrow, everything changes." In the rain, 2 figures watched the house through binoculars. They had arrived from Tucson that afternoon, with specific plans to recover the money Denise owed them, plans that involved Joyce and Richard. Christine Davis arrived at the hospital accompanied by Dr. Garcia. Richard saw her through the window and immediately recognized Joyce's features in the young, dark-haired woman's face. Christine looked fragile, but determined. "Mr. Sterling?" Dr. Garcia approached. "Christine would like to speak with you before seeing her daughter." In a small room, Christine studied him for long moments. "Thank you for taking care of my Val when I couldn't." Richard wasn't expecting gratitude. "How is she? Physically? Emotionally? Does she remember me?" "She's recovering from the poisoning. Emotionally, she has nightmares, panic attacks, and yes, she remembers you. She talks about the mother who smelled like flowers and sang her to sleep. I sang 'Hush, Little Baby' every night. It was our song. She still remembers the lyrics," Christine sobbed. 3 years of her life that I lost, 3 years in which she suffered because of my illness." "What happened?" "Severe postpartum depression. I was sure I was going to hurt her. I heard voices saying that she was in danger with me. One night I had an episode and fled to the streets with her." "And how did she end up with Denise?" "I had another worse episode. I was sure that I was the danger. I left Val in a park and disappeared. Denise found her days later." "And now?" "Cured. Completely cured for 6 months. I'm in therapy. I take medication. I work in a store in Tucson. I've built a life that only makes sense if my daughter is part of it." Joyce entered, accompanied by a psychologist, wearing the yellow dress from the hearing. Mother and daughter looked at each other for long seconds. "Mommy," she whispered. "My little Val," Christine replied, opening her arms. Joyce ran to her and Richard had to leave the room. The intensity of the emotion was unbearable. For 2 hours, mother and daughter talked. Joyce showed her doll, told her about Richard. Christine sang "Hush, Little Baby," and Joyce remembered every word. But when Christine asked about Denise, Joyce clammed up. When she talked about leaving Phoenix, the child panicked. "I don't want to leave Daddy Richard. He promises he'll never give me bad medicine." Dr. Reynolds suggested a gradual transition. Separating her abruptly could cause additional trauma. "Mr. Sterling, would you be willing?" Christine asked. "I know it must be painful. If it's better for Joyce, I'll accept anything." Michelle arrived running. "We have a problem. Denise escaped from the boarding house, and there are people looking for her in the city." "What kind of people?" "The kind you don't want to meet in a small town. They arrived from Tucson last night." Richard's phone rang. It was the company security guard. "Mr. Sterling, there are 2 people here wanting to talk about a debt of Denise Smith." "Don't let them in." "Sir, they don't seem willing to take no for an answer." The call was interrupted. "I need to go to the factory. Something's wrong." "I'll go with you," Christine said. "No, stay with Joyce. If something happens to me, she'll need you." At the factory, he found the gate open and the security guard's office empty. Inside the building, his employees were gathered in the conference room, visibly nervous. Two men in dark suits were talking to his manager. "Mr. Sterling," one of the men said, "exactly who we wanted to see." The man was tall, thin, with a scar on his forehead. "My name is Sal. This is Joaquin. We came from Tucson to resolve a matter with our friend Denise." "I don't know any Denise." "Sure you do. The blonde who took care of the little girl who now lives in your house. Denise owes us 50 grand, Joaquin said. Money she should have gotten from you. Let my employees leave. Actually, when someone owes us money and doesn't pay, we have to recover it in other ways. A thriving factory like this is worth a lot more than 50 grand. How much do you want?" 200 grand. Compensation for the interest and trouble. "And if I don't pay?" "Accidents happen, factories catch fire, people get hurt, and little girls sometimes disappear. If you touch Joyce..." "Relax. No one wants to hurt the girl. We just want our money. 200 grand is a small price to keep your family safe." Sal showed a photo of Joyce playing in the backyard. "We have people watching. If you call the police, if you try to run, you understand the consequences." After they left, Ronaldo showed him that he had recorded the conversation. "We have proof of the extortion. It doesn't matter. They have people watching Joyce. I can't risk it. So you're going to pay?" Richard looked out the window at the city where he had built his life. In 1 week, everything had collapsed. But even knowing that his life would never be the same, he didn't regret having saved Joyce. "I'm going to pay. But first I need to make sure Joyce is safe." At the hospital, Denise had appeared disguised as a cleaning lady, carrying a syringe with sedative in her uniform pocket. She pushed a cleaning cart through the corridors, observing every move. In the recreation room, Joyce was building a tower of blocks, while Christine read, keeping an eye on her daughter. Denise pretended to clean the glass door, watching. Her plan was to sedate Christine quickly, grab Joyce, and leave through the back where a car was waiting. As she prepared to enter, Dr. Reynolds passed by talking on his cell phone about a transfer of the child. Denise hid in the bathroom. "Ms. Davis, we received a call from the court. There are questions about your parental rights. Someone has filed a petition claiming that you are not mentally competent." Christine paled. "But I have a medical discharge. Legally, they can force a re-evaluation, and while that isn't resolved, Joyce will have to remain under Mr. Sterling's care." "Mommy, are you going to leave again?" Joyce asked. "No, my little one." Dr. Reynolds was called away for an emergency. As soon as he left, Denise acted. She entered, pushing the cart. "Excuse me, Mom. I need to clean quickly." Christine barely looked up, consoling Joyce. Denise pulled out the syringe and approached from behind. But Joyce saw her. "Denise!" the child screamed. Christine turned as Denise tried to inject her. The women fought, knocking over the cart and scattering chemicals. Joyce ran to the corner, screaming. The smell of the products activated her allergy. She began to cough violently. "You're coming with me, honey," Denise gasped. "Mommy, Denise is back. You're not my mother. You never were." Security arrived running. Denise was subdued, but Joyce was having a severe allergic reaction to the chemical exposure. "Code blue in the recreation room," Dr. Reynolds shouted as Joyce convulsed. Denise was taken into custody, but shouted, "This isn't over here. They're going to get her. They're going to get all of you." An hour later, Joyce was stable in the ICU. Richard had arrived running, followed by Susan and Michelle. Christine didn't leave the side of the bed. "How is she?" Richard asked. "Stable, but it was a severe reaction. She'll need to stay hospitalized for a few days." "And Denise?" "In custody. Attempted kidnapping, assault, violation of a court order." Richard told her about the encounter at the factory, the threats, the $200,000. "You have to call the police," Christine said. "They said they have people watching. If I call, they might hurt Joyce." And if you pay, will it end? That kind of people always come back for more. Christine looked at Joyce sleeping in the ICU. She's suffered too much already. What are you suggesting? That we leave Phoenix, all of us? You, me, Joyce? We start a new life? You would let me be part of Joyce's life? Richard, you saved my daughter twice. When I couldn't take care of her, you did. Today you were willing to pay $200,000 to keep her safe. Joyce needs stability. She needs people who love her unconditionally. It's obvious that you love her as much as I do. But legally, I can authorize you to adopt her formally. We can be an unconventional but real family. It's crazy, but it might work, Susan said. There's one problem. Sal and Joaquin won't let us go, and I don't have $200,000 in cash. There's the factory, Susan reminded him. You can't give that up for my sake, Christine protested. Christine, I spent 52 years building a company, but taking care of Joyce, I discovered that there are more important things than profit. He looked at the ICU. A company can be rebuilt. Money can be recovered, but if something happens to Joyce, they devised a plan. Richard would sell the factory quickly, pay the criminals, and there would be enough left over to start a new life in another state. It's going to be difficult, Susan warned. I've started from scratch once before, Richard said. And so have I. The difference is that this time I won't be alone, Christine added. The next morning, Richard was organizing the documentation when Ronaldo entered in a panic. They're back, and they brought more people. Through the window, he saw 3 black SUVs. Sal, Joaquin, and 4 other men were walking towards the building. Time's up, businessman, Sal said on the phone. We're waiting for you downstairs. And bring the keys. We decided to accept the factory as payment. I thought you wanted money. We changed our minds. A factory is worth much more than 200 grand, especially when we discovered how much it really makes. When Richard went down, he found an unexpected scene. His employees, all of them, were surrounding the criminals' cars. Ronaldo was in front, holding a wrench. Mr. Sterling, Ronaldo said loudly, we've been here for 15 years. This factory gave us jobs when no one else would. We're not going to let some thugs steal our company. How touching, Sal laughed. But this is between us and your boss. You're wrong, said a voice behind him. It was Christine, accompanied by Dr. Reynolds, Michelle, and 2 men in suits. These are Agents Miller and Johnson from the FBI. Denise decided to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. She told us everything about the scheme. Sal and Joaquin tried to run, but they were surrounded by the federal agents and employees. Sal Santos and Joaquin Lima, you are under arrest for extortion, threats, racketeering, and money laundering. How did you manage that? Richard asked Christine. Denise knew she was going to get a heavy sentence. When they offered her a reduction, for information about the criminal network, she accepted. Sal and Joaquin have been wanted for months for crimes in 3 states. And Joyce? She was discharged an hour ago. She's at the hospital waiting for us to decide where we're going. Richard looked at his factory, his employees, his hometown. Everything he had built was still there. You know what? I don't think we're going anywhere. What do you mean? Phoenix is our home. It's where Joyce started to heal, where we met, where we discovered we can be a family. Why run? Christine smiled, the first true smile he had seen on her face. So we're staying? We're staying. All of us. At the hospital, Joyce was playing with her doll when Richard and Christine arrived together. Her eyes lit up. Daddy Richard, Mommy, you came to get me together. The naturalness with which she called Richard Daddy made his heart ache. Yes, my little one, Christine said, and we have good news. We don't have to worry about Denise or those bad men anymore. They're gone forever? Forever, Richard confirmed. Dr. Reynolds entered carrying a thick folder. Before we discharge her, there's something important we discovered during the tests for this hospitalization. Is it something serious? Christine asked. Not medically, but it is significant. During the blood tests, our laboratory identified something in Joyce's DNA that we weren't expecting. Dr. Reynolds opened the folder. We did a more complete analysis, comparing it with a larger database. We found a partial match that no one expected. A partial match? Joyce has a blood relative living here in Phoenix, an uncle. The silence was absolute. Joyce stopped playing. What do you mean, an uncle? Christine asked. My family came from Oklahoma. I have no relatives in Arizona. It's not from your family, it's from Joyce's father's family. Christine paled. During 3 years of treatment, she had blocked the memories of her daughter's father. Mr. Sterling, Dr. Reynolds turned, do you have male siblings? No, just Susan. Why? Because the match indicates that you and Joyce's father are close relatives, first cousins. That's impossible. I know all my cousins. The DNA indicates that Joyce's father and you share paternal grandparents. This suggests that the father is the son of a brother of your father. Richard sat down heavily. My father had a younger brother, Anthony. He left home at 18 after a terrible fight. He never came back. When did that happen? More than 30 years ago. I remember the fights. My father said that Anthony got involved with bad company, was causing shame to the family. Do you have any idea where he went? I vaguely remember my mother commenting that he went to Oklahoma. He worked in a lumber mill. Oklahoma, Christine murmured. I grew up in Oklahoma City. Joyce, Richard knelled. Do you remember anything about your daddy? The girl thought seriously. He had hair like yours, and eyes too, and he always smelled like wood. Smelled like wood? Yeah, Mommy said it was because he worked with trees. Christine covered her face. It's coming back. Some memories are coming back. There was a man, Christopher Sterling. He worked at a lumber yard. He was kind, but there was something sad about him, as if he was always running away. Christopher. That may be the name of my Uncle Anthony's son. He disappeared when he found out I was pregnant. He said he couldn't stay, that he had problems with his family. I never understood. Dr. Reynolds made notes. That would explain why Joyce ended up on the streets. If the father fled and the mother had a postpartum episode, she was left without family. But now she has one, Richard said. She has a mother who loves her and a uncle. What are we going to call that? Heart Daddy, Joyce said immediately. That's what I always wanted to have. Heart Daddy is perfect. Christine smiled through tears. Susan arrived with clean clothes for Joyce. When Richard told her about the DNA discovery, she almost fainted. Anthony had a son. All these years we thought he had disappeared forever. And maybe he has disappeared. We don't know if Christopher is still alive. We can look for him, Christine suggested. Joyce has the right to know her father if he's alive. What if he doesn't want to be found? What if he abandoned you deliberately? Then at least we'll know the truth. 3 weeks later, life had found a new routine. Joyce officially lived with Christine, but spent most of her days at Richard's house, while Christine worked in a craft store that Richard had helped her get. They had become an unconventional family. A single mother, a single businessman transformed into a heart daddy and a child who had finally found stability. Joyce was recovering remarkably. The nightmares decreased, she was gaining weight, and her true personality, curious, intelligent, and surprisingly resilient, was finally emerging. Daddy Richard, she said one afternoon fishing on the Salt River, are you happy you found me in the park? Richard looked at the girl, focused on her fishing rod. You know what, little one? That was the most important day of my entire life. Why? Because that's when I discovered that being happy has nothing to do with money or a company. It has to do with having people we love. And you love me. More than anything in the world, Joyce smiled. I think I'm going to like being a heart daughter. When they returned home, they found Christine in the kitchen with a strange expression. Did something happen? I received a call today from Oklahoma City, Christine continued. It was from a man named Christopher Sterling. He heard about us through a friend who saw the article about Joyce in the local newspaper. The silence was total. My real daddy wants to meet me, Joyce asked. Confused. It seems so. But I already have two parents, Mommy and Daddy Richard. Why do I need another? Richard laughed, pulling her into a hug. You know what? There's no maximum number of people who can love you. The more, the better. So he can come here? Christine looked at Richard, who nodded. He can. In fact, he's already on his way. He arrives tomorrow. That night, after Joyce went to sleep, Richard and Christine talked on the porch, watching the city lights reflect on the river. Are you afraid? He asked. Terrified. What if he wants to take Joyce away? What if she decides she prefers her real father? Christine, look at me. She turned, eyes shining on the border between fear and hope. Richard took a deep breath before continuing. No matter what happens tomorrow, Joyce is still going to have us. You, me, she's not going to walk alone anymore. Christine nodded slowly, and a tear slid silently down her cheek. Thank you for not giving up on her. Or on me. We don't choose when life changes, he said with a sad smile. But we choose what to do when it does. Christine reached out, her hand, and he held it tight. For the first time in a long time, they both felt like they were exactly where they should be. From the room, they heard Joyce's sleepy voice. Mommy, Daddy, I'm thirsty. Christine smiled and got up. I'll get water. Are you coming? Richard nodded. Always.